Welcome design students. In this video we're going to continue the crate project by unwrapping the UVs, creating a UV template, and then I'll show you how to export that or open that in Photoshop and use pictures of real-world materials to create a texture. As you can see, I've already finished this one, and if we look at Photoshop, here is the texture that I constructed of it. You can see here that there are pictures of wood. If I turn on the UV layers, you can see that they have, here's the UV template that's been laid out. And here are the two textures that I used. This is for the ends of the boards, and this I sampled a bunch of different times for the actual wood to create this. I then used Photoshop to create a normal map, and I also wanted to try to create a height map as well. And these maps give our asset depth and more texture. So I'm going to start by switching to the UV editing workspace, and I'm going to turn off Arnold viewport. And if I select my crate object, you can see that I've laid out the UVs here. Now, some of these are pink and some of these are blue because I have this turned on. And what this does is it tells me if any of my UVs are flipped. Now that mattered because at one point, this U.S. Army stencil that I had put on here was backwards, and that's because this was flipped. This UV was flipped. If I select it and move it, you can see that if I flip this one, it turns red, and you can also see now that the texture is backwards. So if something you put on there appears backwards, you'll know why. But for most of these things, it doesn't matter. I've also got a lot of these on top of each other. It's different faces are just on top of each other. That's because, this particular piece is the end piece here, and one face is inside and one is outside, and they can share the same texture since they're not really next to each other. These are more visible. These are the ones on the top. So I decided to separate them all together. If we click this button right here, that will turn on the texture that you're using so that you can line things up if you need to. Now, once you get all your pieces done, you're probably going to have them scattered all over creation like this. As we were unwrapping them. What you need to do is sort of put them all in one general area next to each other. Try to sort of put them all in proximity and then select them all and scale them all down like so, so that they'll fit inside this area. This center area is where they have to go. And then get them in there, and then scale them back up and rearrange them a little bit so that they fit in here nicely. And once you've done that, you can generate the UV template. To generate the UV template, you click this little camera button right here. But before you do that, you have to select your UVs. Switch to UV mode and select all your UVs. Then click the little camera icon. And I always like to change this to JPEG. And I like to change my edge color to bright green so I can see it. And then click Browse and go to your project folder. You can put it in the Images folder or the Source Images folder, it doesn't matter. Name it. I usually name mine something like whatever it's going to be, UVW, and click Apply and Close. And when you do that, that will generate a UV template. And the UV template will look like this. Once you have that generated, you can then move to Photoshop. Once you open Photoshop, click Open, and then you're going to go to where you saved your image. your UV template. Open the UV template, and I also open whatever textures I'm going to use as well. Just open them all at once. Once you have them open, find the UV template, and we're going to duplicate this layer twice. And then we're going to turn off this back layer, and we're going to change the blending mode of these top two layers to screen. And that will allow us to see the template while we're working. And then we will come in and sample a piece of wood, a piece of this image to use to start building our template. So I'm going to grab that piece. I just did a selection like so, and I'm going to hit Command C to copy it. Go to the UV template, hit Command V to paste. And then I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And notice that came in between the two layers. I want it between these top two layers, and see now I can see my UV template on top here. So I'm going to move this up. And importantly, we should lock these two layers, otherwise you'll do what I just did and move it by accident. And then I want to turn this so it's vertical. To do that, I go to Edit, Transform, Rotate 90 degrees. Then I'll move it into place, and I'm going to hit Command T on my keyboard and hold down Shift and size this so it fits the top of the board. And push Enter to accept that transformation. Now I can use this again over here because these two boards are not going to be near each other. So to do that, I just keep this layer selected, hit Command C, Command V, move this over, rotate it again, and I can just put this into place, hit Command T again to transform it, make sure to hold down Shift so I can move each edge individually. Like so. For the sides and the top, I'm going to sample more than one board. Instead of creating a brand new selection, what I usually do is go to Select, Transform Selection, and then I can move this selection around. And I can also transform it and just change the size of it a little bit. When you're done, push Enter, and then Command C, Command V, and come back and paste. I think this will be on the top. To do the ends here, we're going to want to match these ends up with these seams here to make it look like we have the actual ends of these boards. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to go grab an end piece here, and I can't be sure that these will line up properly. So I'm going to get my select tool and just select two for now, like so. Command C, Command V. And notice these are a lot bigger than the other ones I brought in. That's because this image is much higher resolution than this image. You need to make sure that your resolutions match up as closely as possible. Now I want that seam to match up as closely as it can. It may not get it perfect, but that's okay. Then I'm going to sample another two. I'm just going to go to Select, Transform Selection, and pick this up and move it down and grab these two. One other thing we need to do is create a layer down at the bottom of our layer stack, right above the background layer. Just select the background layer and hit the plus sign, and that creates a new layer. And then we're going to sample a color using the eyedropper tool. I'm going to sample one of these colors here, sort of a mid-range color. Here's my sample. And then I'm going to fill this background layer with that color. To do that, you hold down Alt and push the delete key, and that fills whatever you're selected with the foreground layer. So now if anything is out misaligned here, like say that, then we'll have this nice brown color there instead of that black color. To render this out and apply it to our mesh, you're always going to want to turn off these top two layers and then go to File, Export As. You can leave it as a JPEG, click Export, and you're going to want to put it in your Images folder, but you're going to want to rename it something like albedo, which is what the color map is called, and then click Save. And once you've done that, you can then apply the material to your object. You simply select all your objects, not the ground plane if you have one, or any of your lights, but select all your objects that make up your mesh, and right-click Assign New Material. And just select the standard surface material or an Arnold standard surface material if you're going to use Arnold. And then you're going to come to the material itself, select the color swatch, click File, click the folder, and you're going to find your texture that you rendered and apply it, like so. If you want to look at your texture while you're constructing it, each time you change it, you're going to have to re-export it. And then overwrite it by just clicking the albedo map that you already saved. Click Save. You're going to click Replace. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to overwrite mine. And then back in Maya, you're going to have to click Reload in the texture slot so that it will reload and you'll see your changes. So that is a brief explanation of how you generate a UVW map and create a texture. In the next video, we'll talk about some different tricks we can use to color match components and to apply stencils, and also how to create a normal map. And I'll see you then.